right, so you've got the screen, yes? Thumbs up if you see my screen. All right, awesome. So welcome our give to get boomerangers, boomers rather. So hello, my name is Doug McGuirk, and today we are going to be unpacking and uncovering the 3 secrets to unlocking and rocking your resources, how you can network your way to wealth. Now, this is a multi-leveled sort of conversation in that if you are a boomer here, you are already part of a network. So this is super powerful. Now we're just going to take this to another level on how we can expand upon our already powerful network in a little bit of a different way, where this isn't networking as in networking or direct marketing. This is actual networking within your resources. However, you can, of course, utilize this philosophy, this training in growing your boomer business, your give to get, and beyond. So let's dive in why this is important. And maybe if you've already met me before, you know my heart. My heart is transformation of the world. My heart is that we are living in some very crazy times, and we thought it was going to go away. Probably a little bit sooner than it seems to be, that every step of the way we're having challenges. Now we have new variants, and not to go down any rabbit holes, they're there. Doesn't matter really what your opinion is on them, the existence is real. Then we've got all sorts of craziness, and people are locking down. I just saw a report today that Australia and France is actually preventing and locking down even harder to prevent people from having anti-lockdown conversations. This is so bananas. And depending on what side you pick on this is going to create even more stress, even more strife. And the problem in this world is we're going to have to choose. I choose freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, spiritual freedom, and I'm going to hallucinate. So do you. That is why you are here. That is why you are a boomer. That is why you do not settle. You are committed to transforming your life, to creating a powerful existence for you and your family. Look, I don't need to share with you the other stats. Jobs are, look, if you want a job, that is great. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of security, there's a lot of opportunities around it. And since you're a boomer, I already know that while you're here, you understand the power of supporting each other, the power of all boats rising with the tide, the power of being responsible, personally responsible for your future. And that's what this conversation is about, because if we don't, we are going to have major challenges. Is this the new way? Hope not, but it's, again, one of these things. So the question is, what lifestyle are you committing to living? We have the freedom of choice. We always will. The choices we have to make may be limited, but right now, the choices we have are you going to be a victim or a victor? Are you going to be a worrier or a warrior? And all of that is based upon the meaning you give whatever situations. And we get into that deeper in my Freedom Hack program and all that. So as you dive into the Boomerang and the Give to Get library, you'll find there's other trainings by myself and others within this organization that are going to support you in creating the confidence, the certainty you need in order to be successful. Now, little kind of philosophy here is, as you know, misery loves company. And maybe you've experienced this. Maybe you've noticed that as things get kind of stressful, or we have all these challenges and so forth, we may find ourselves picking up the phone or talking to somebody or tuning into the news and going, oh my gosh, another problem. And call up your friend. Can you believe such and such happened? And well, that can take us out, because the truth is success loves company too. But they love success. They don't want to hear the call about boo hoo. Oh, this is effed up. Oh, screw this, screw that. Can you believe so and so did this and that? They are more excited about and will be supportive of, hey, here's this another success. Here's a way that I was able to move the needle. Here's how I was able to grow my business. Here's how I was able to improve my health. Here's how I was able to excite my relationship, right? So, what we need to do is have a philosophy of success loves company as well, and then make that a primary focus. You may have learned this about me as well. I, like you, maybe felt a little uncomfortable in my own skin. Maybe you experienced this. I grew up, I felt like I was an outcast. I was labeled the stoner, loser, metalhead. Well, I'm not sure that was a bad thing. Metalhead was always good, right? Because rock, right? But the point is that in the world I lived in, being a metalhead, being hanging out with that group, even that group, I felt like I was an outcast. I was also kicked out of every high school I attended. We just didn't get along, right? Most entrepreneurs, most leaders can sometimes have some challenges with the black and white of things. We see things more in the kaleidoscope, in the gray areas. And like you, I'm sure you've experienced the same. I've experienced the same in figuring out my way in a world of square pegs. We may be those round circles. And I always felt like I was misunderstood. And still to this day, sometimes I feel that way. And well, I did have to reinvent myself as well, being a divorcee and now happily married with a family, with a child, have transformed my life in every way. And that's what this conversation is about, is how you can use the resources you have available to you now to transform every area of your life. And if you want, take a step further and work even more consciously, more proactively on growing your life. And this is every area of your life. Now, why is this important? Just really quick, high level. So I fortunate enough to be a national trainer and speaker on the road with Tony Robbins, shared the stage with people like Les Brown, Tony, Scott Kloslowski, all these amazing, incredible speakers, Omar Pariu and Dr. Fab, like all these incredible speakers, presenters, trainers, world transformers. And I'm blessed and gifted to be able to work with my beautiful wife, Heidi, here. Here we are running events together, and there's Heidi with my mentor, Tony. And it's been really powerful. But I started out, part of my invention was in music. So I've had to reinvent. This was a lifetime ago, working with these incredible musicians. Now I'll date myself with some of these. You may not know who they all are. That's Nile Rodgers, Dee Snider, Hanson from MMMBop fame, Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, Tony Harnell from TNT, Alice Cooper. I was able to play golf with Alice, and then we sang Gloria one night to raise some money. And there's Tico Torres, Nico McBrain, Tico Torres from Bon Jovi, Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. And there I am. And we performed together, and it was a real powerful experience. I'm just sharing that with you, not to impress you, but to impress upon you that we all have had our ups and downs. You may be experiencing, like I have multiple times, peaks and valleys. And maybe you hit a certain level and you were crushing it. And then for no reason of your own, the rug was pulled out from beneath you. So here I am with beautiful wife Heidi, our daughter Ellie. This is a few years ago. There she was when she was born. There we are doing a firewalk. And why am I sharing this all with you? Well,
on a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
Just to give a little bit of context into where some of these lessons have come from, that I've been on all sides of this. So let's start with lesson number one, or secret number one, and that is this: success leaves clues, as Tony Robbins says, but it also dives deeper into this NLP presupposition, and that is, if one person has accomplished something, anyone can accomplish that same thing through modeling. So, what is modeling? Well, modeling is, let's just take this off, and I'll come back to our share. I think I can do this. Modeling is when we look at a person or an opportunity that has been successful, and then we unpack what they did and followed in kind. So when I first started in the music industry, I did my research and I looked at successful people, and I had the opportunity. My dad actually believed in school, believed in education. He still does. And if that was my path, I could have gone to school for music. He would have paid for it. But when I did my research, it turned out that all the successful people, especially doing what I was doing as an artist or a producer, engineer, like especially as a producer or an engineer, you had to end up going and interning anyway. So then my experience was, well, let me think about this. If I'm going to go intern anyway, and all the research I've done on successful people, because at that point I had been already following in, some of Tony's concepts and philosophies, and he talked about modeling and success leaving clues. I said, all right, well, let me just think about this. Do I want to go to school, or do I want to school myself and get an education from people who are getting results? So what I did was I went and I interned. I bypassed school, had no support, lived off of credit cards, and I interned at a studio. Now, what does that mean? Well, I got there at 10 a.m. in the morning, and I would empty the garbage. I would make the coffee. I would bring coffee. I would help unravel cables, wrap up cables, move microphones around. And the engineers, the producers, all the people who were doing the work were directing me. And what I was doing was learning from the professionals. I could have learned this in school, but I would have learned it anyway. And I'd have to do this anyway. So I might as well just do it at the school while I was working, although paying to work there, because I was working for free, living off of credit cards. So what happened there? I would start meeting different people, different artists. Now, I was also an artist. One of the reasons why I got into this was because I was making records that weren't working for me. They didn't sound right, and I didn't know what was going on. So I got to learn how to communicate, how to make these records. Let me model people who are already making records. And I was fortunate enough to be living in New York. So the studio that I ended up interning at, was one of the premier studios on Long Island. It's still there today. One of the few studios still open today, called Cove City Sound Studios. And it was owned by a big producer and a gentleman by the name of Richie Cannata, who was Billy Joel's saxophone player for all of those big records in the 70s. Richie played all those sax solos, and he was part of the original Billy Joel band. So we were I was surrounded by experts. I was surrounded by people who were getting these results. Rick Wake was the producer, who was the co-owner with Richie, and he had discovered Taylor Dane and Mariah Carey he worked with, and all these big artists. So I was surrounded by super successful people getting results, people to model. So I worked at the studio for free as an intern from 10 to 6. Then what I would do is stay at the studio from 6 until they were done. And they would ask, I was still kind of interning, but again, I was kind of observing. They had interns that came at night who had day jobs and that kind of thing. And I would just learn how to communicate, how to hang in this environment. So then when they were done, I would stay overnight and start practicing what I learned. I would start applying it. I would start mixing records. I would try different things because I had access to this big studio. And then I would sleep on the couch for a couple hours. They had a shower upstairs, so I would go take a shower and do that over. And I did that for months until they started paying me. And I ended up just staying on there, learning from them, mastering my music career during that time, to the point where I was now helping as I became a staff producer, making some rock records with them. Co-produced the second Widowmaker record. That's Dee Snider's band after Twisted Sister. Worked with a lot of big bands, Stabbing Westward. I joined one of the bands that I was in and toured with them. Produced that record. I produced my own record, which unfortunately never came out. But I was in that environment and I was learning and mastering and building my network, getting to know all these incredible people in the industry. Then when I left the studio, I was able to grow that business from there as a producer, engineer, had a production company. So that model worked. Well, the peak of my career is when Napster came out. So what happened? I had to start all over. And during that time, I networked my way to the guy who was the money behind the Backstreet Boys, not Lou Pearlman. His name was Eric. Eric Emanuel. Unfortunately, he's passed away. But he was the money behind all of that. And I connected with him and I got to know him and we became friends and I just added value and we would connect. And he basically brought me into, as an investor, I raised money for a company that he had that was going public. And I was able to raise a bunch of money because of my network. And through that, I grew my network even more. Well, then I had to, peak of my career was when Napster came out. So just giving you a little, if you remember Napster, again, dating myself, that is where we didn't have back in that time Airbnbs and Uber and things like that. So there was, now we have this great term, industry disruptor and pivoting and all of that kind of stuff. Well, we didn't have that at the time. What we had was what the F. That was what we had because we had no idea what just happened. The music industry started crumbling. Studios started closing. Record companies were closing. It was mayhem. So I had to make a choice. Do I ride this wave? Do I focus on making this happen? Or do I find a new way? Do I pivot? And I did. I pivoted. And I had gone to a Tony Robbins event, UPW, Unleash the Power Within. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I need to do. This is the perfect mix of like live concert and education. So now it's not like, oh, I'm going to go to a seminar and just stand there and listen. No, it's like a concert and it's exciting and there's people dancing. And it was just, it was the perfect mix for me. I totally got it. And I was like, this is what I got to do. Well, let's go back to modeling. What do I do? Surround myself with people in that industry, in that world. I started going to events, started investing in myself, into personal development, into me, going to different seminars, learning from people to the point where I ended up getting the gig working as a national trainer with Tony Robbins, going on the road with Tony, traveling the country as a national speaker and trainer, and transforming lives with Tony. And of course, adding value to Tony and the personal development community through modeling, through associating with people, getting the results, right? Success leaves clues. Misery loves company, success loves company. So I put myself in that environment, and by proxy, and by focus, of course, I started to learn how to transform my life, how to transform any area that I wanted to improve by being around people who are getting those results. It's the power of the community. That's the power of being in an environment like this. Then we got recruited. Well, by the way, this is where I ended up meeting my wife. I knew her prior to this in sort of an environment like this in the personal development community. She ended up coming on the road with me. And I figured, hey, this is the way we're going to learn. Either this is going to work or not. We're not doing long distance. And it worked, right? Brilliant immersion. This is where immersion is so important, by consistency, immersing yourself in an environment. So all you boomers out there, if you're participating in this, immerse yourself in this environment. Like if you're not here live, go download the video, go watch it, share the video, have little like watch parties, right? And where you're communicating and helping each other. So then my now wife and I were recruited to bring personal development to the treatment centers, to the rehab, drug and alcohol treatment. And same thing, we immersed ourselves in the environment by mastering, talking to the docs, all the therapists, and like learning what worked for them. And the more we had these connections, the more we would learn, the more we would grow. So just think about these things as you're going. Is how can you use your environment through modeling? So now let's. Oh, where's my little mouse here? Where'd my mouse go? Can't see my. Oh, here we go. I lost my mouse, and I'm gonna probably have to keep it up. All right, are we seeing the screen again? All right, awesome. So let's get into how we can use this. So think about this. What, because there's an H in it, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to experience in life? What are some of your goals? What are some of your outcomes? Do you want to grow this boomer business? Do you want to grow your primary business? Do you want to improve your health? Do you want to improve your relationships? Right? Get really clear as to what your goals are. So that's step one, right? But before we get into modeling, we got to know what the outcome is, right? So what is it you want to experience, and get clear, reasonably clear on it. At least have a direction, right? So let's say you want to go to California. Well, all right, that's good. So you may not know you want to go to LA or San Diego, but you want to go in that direction. And you may, on your journey, you may find some ways, because the next step is to find out who is getting the results that you want. Who's getting the results? So a philosophy that I have been living and preaching that's transformed every area of my life is to hang out with people whose normal is what you aspire to. Hang out with, surround yourself with people whose normal is what you aspire to. So on your journey, you may find, say, oh, I want to go to California, or I want to build a business, or I want to do, whatever it is. When you then find someone who's getting those results, you will then be able to unpack even more why they chose whatever, or why they did what they did, or why they took the path that they took, so that you can do the same. And then you want to ask, where are they? Where are these mentors? Where are these people who are getting results, who are having the success that you are looking to achieve? Now, this is an interesting conversation because they're everywhere. So that's why you want to know where you are, where you want to go, who they are, and then find your ways to immerse yourself in that environment. How can you immerse yourself? Now, is this making sense so far? Yeah. But then what? Well, you got to understand a philosophy around it. So, our lesson number 2, secret number 2 is this: truly successful people love to share their wisdom. They love to share it. So when I think back to some of my experiences, I start with my music industry. One of the experiences I had was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, believe it or not, has had to reinvent himself a few times. If you remember, he was, Twisted Sister was huge, right? There was a giant glam band, but then, if again dating myself a little bit, like in the 80s and early 90s, they were tremendous, and then grunge came in and they weren't invited to the party, right? So now he's having to start over. So I met him when he was working at the studio I was working at, and he was a production coordinator because he needed to make money and he had to do whatever it took. But guess what? He had no problem sharing his story with me, sharing how he navigated his way. And during that time, while I was there with him and produced the second Widowmaker record, while he was there, being in the environment, surrounding himself with successful people, he ended up getting a song on Celine Dion's Christmas record, right? So check this out. When you're in this environment, these opportunities happen because you're in the environment. It just doesn't happen randomly. You've got to put yourself in the environment. You need to consciously surround yourself. And then also remember that truly successful people love to share their wisdom. So you can ask them, you can communicate with them, you can have these dialogues, these conversations with them because they love talking about it. It's amazing. So many times We get intimidated. We think that, oh my goodness, I don't want to ask them. I don't want to bother them. Well, the truth is that they want to share their story. Why do you think people write autobiographies? When you look at successful people, they go, you know what? I need to share this message. They understand you've got to give to get. Isn't that interesting? How this whole philosophy, this boomerang philosophy, is based on this secret. And it's not a secret, just people don't realize the power of it. People love to share their wisdom. Think about it for you. Have you ever seen someone struggling, someone you love, someone you care about, and you see them having some challenges? Don't you love going, hey, here's some advice. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Oh, I've been there. Let me hook you up. Right? So don't deny people that gift to you. Moving on through, again, when I think about my music career, the chief engineer there loved to share his experience as an engineer and producer. And what was interesting is I just want to make the clarification of true success. True success is also that you're happy, you're healthy, you've got your relationships intact, you've got, so we want to model holistically healthy people, because just because someone is successful in one area of life does not always mean they're successful in all areas, right? Is it possible someone could be making a lot of money, but they're to the cost, to the detriment of their relationships or their health or their spirituality? So we want to also be sure that what we're modeling is holistic and ecological. Because if you model someone and the way they got successful was ignoring their family, ignoring their health, and ignoring their higher power, well, that's not what we want to model. That is not going to be getting us to the next level. That is a recipe for disaster. So the people I'm sharing are people who have had major success. So Dee Snider, amazing man, still married, has great relationships with his family, his children. I'm good friends with some of his children as well. So like it's a holistic thing. His wife is incredible. They just everything they have is a brilliant model. The chief engineer, very like focused on this. Sometimes you may have to focus on specific stuff, but you've got to then parse it out. So, and this is getting deeper. This is why you want to join a group to support you in this, right? That's why, I have the mentor mind, is that it creates the environment so we could do this strategically. And even if you don't join the mentor mind, you want to be thinking in terms of finding these successful people and modeling them. So again, all my music friends taught me so much in music. Eric, with the company that I helped raise all that money, I learned so much from him about business, about spirituality. He was a very spiritual man. So while he was extraordinarily financially successful, he had a fantastic family. I'm still friends with his son. He just had this incredible experience in life, and he would share all that. We would go out to dinner, and it was just a pleasure listening to him just share his philosophy and what made him so successful. Then when I went on the road with Tony Robbins, this guy Roberto, he was the lead trainer. He loved and still does love sharing his prowess as a speaker, as a trainer. Right, Tony Robbins. Why do you think Tony Robbins has his giant company sharing his wisdom? He loved doing it one-on-one, so now he scaled it. So he shares what he's doing, and he'll tell you at an event, and he told me personally, he said, look, what I'm doing is everything I'm teaching in these big rooms to thousands and thousands of people. It's exactly what I teach you when we're on one-on-one. It's the exact same thing. People pay $1 million to see me one-on-one so they could say they see me one-on-one, but I'm telling them the exact same stuff. And just to give you an idea on the power of this and how true it is that people love to share their wisdom, I have this show called The Real Deal On. You can find it on therealdealon.com. And these are the people that I've been interviewing. So there's James Arthur Ray, and his wife Bear, where I was gifted to my wife and I. We've become friends. He is big in the personal development world. Julio Gonzalez right here. Julio is a brilliant, he has one of the largest engineering tax credit companies in the country. He's amazing, super nice guy. Sort of reached him out of the blue, said, "Hey, you super successful. You have this great company. You've pivoted during COVID. You've got all your companies, all your people working from home. How'd you do it?" We've become very close because he's just willing to share. He loves sharing his wisdom. There's Marshall Silver, huge in the personal development industry. One of the first people after Tony I got into. Loves sharing his story. Again, all these people have become my friends because I'm consciously putting myself in that environment. There I am with D. Murray Sarchuk is a brilliant magician and comedian. Became friends with him. He was playing a show in Vegas. After the show, went up to him and said, "Hey, let's talk. I love the way you market. I love the way the way he also, one of the great things he does is his team, he's got some other magicians that like he will bring out that are part of the show, completely celebrates and shares their events. He's got like his mindset is holistic, is brilliant. Gwalter, you probably know Gwalter right here from Give to Get, right? You probably know him as the alchemist, right? Creating 100 millionaires. So we've partnered up with with Terry Wager. Right, I met Gwalter putting myself in an environment consciously. It's where I met Gwalter, where I met Terry, and oh, by the way, the founder of Give to Get, you boomerangs, the chief boomer himself, Morrow, right? All from putting ourselves in this environment and having access so that we can then do joint ventures, we can work together, we can play together, right? So this is the power. There's Richie Kanata I shared from that studio earlier, the sax player from Billy Joel and the Beach Boys, Spyro Gyra Moore, David Meerman Scott, Fanocracy author, Craig Shoemaker, the comedian. Like these are all people. If you Google them, you're going to go, holy crap, these are like big people. And yet they love to share their stories. So just asking them, hey, would you mind sharing your successes and some of your challenges and how you overcame them? They're like, absolutely. That's their passion. So with that being said, now let's think about this. How could we use this? Who can you connect and build a relationship with? Are you being intimidated? Or are you willing to reach out and challenge yourself? Would you be willing to connect with them? Take them out to lunch, take them out to dinner. Now, I remember years ago, again, dating myself, for infomercials. If you remember infomercials, there was this infomercial back in the 80s where it was these two little people, twins, that were in real estate. And they had their program that they were selling in the middle of the night. And they shared one of their strategies was to find someone that was successful, who's getting the results that you want, take out a millionaire and take them out to lunch or dinner and pay for it. And they pointed out, said, well, you're probably thinking, well, if they have it's a millionaire, why should you pay for the millionaire's lunch, millionaire's dinner? And their attitude was like, this is your way to give to get, that you are going to be asking them questions and their time and their wisdom is worth something, that yes, they love to share it. And you still need to give into this process, right? You get what you give. So I want to acknowledge you for being here now because you are investing your most valuable asset, your time. Now, the great thing about being part of Give to Get by being a boomer is that you can not only educate yourself, learn from all these incredible masters, you can also earn as you spread the love, as you promote the opportunity for leaders to share their wisdom. You can also help people transform their finances simply by educating yourself, which is a game. It's just crazy. This is a no-brainer, right? There's absolutely no way you can lose by earning while you learn or learn while you earn. Like there's nothing else like this. So if you're not like digging in and taking in as much information and as much knowledge from these masters and promoting it and getting more people to take in all of this incredible wisdom, I mean, this is, I got nothing to say. We're providing the opportunity to get everything I'm training right now, naturally speaking, in so many ways. So who can you connect with and build a relationship with? Think about it. Who would you reach out to? How would you reach out? Could you just phone them up? email them, text them, Instagram them. You never know. And it may take some time. Like I have friends that I have now that I've had to ask, we've seen them multiple times, some big speakers that, we've shared the stage with. And, the first time I said, hey, I'd love to connect more. And they've been busy. I've been busy. That doesn't mean they're not available. That means they're just not available now. So keep on it and reach out. Yeah, I'd love to grab lunch, grab dinner, grab on a phone call, get on a Zoom call, what have you. They all want to. It's a question of their most valuable asset. So never, ever give up. Always, always, always push forward. Sorry for using the negative, a double negative there. Next is, what could you learn from them? What would you like to learn from them? This is important that we have an idea of what that is. So I'll go back to Eric Emanuel, the guy who was the money behind the Backstreet Boys. I reached out to him and I had called him up, got his number through the music industry, and I called him up and I was like, hey, Eric, it's Doug McGuirk, work with Rick, blah, 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 drop the names, all records. And he's like, hey, Doug, I'd love to talk to you right now, but do you see what the stock market is doing? And I was like, no. He goes, I got to go. Click. Well, long story short, it wasn't until a few years later that I followed up with him. But I called him up again and booked a meeting with him, connected with him. I didn't remind him that we had spoken before, that I had interrupted a bad stock day. I kind of, there's a whole other conversation that in Freedom Hack we could talk about the mindset, about how the stories I started writing about what just happened. But anyway, so I call him back and years later and book a meeting with him. And about a week before the date, it was about a month ahead, right? He's a very busy man. About a week before, he calls me up and he says, Doug, hey, I'm really sorry. I got to cancel. I'm sorry, I got stuff going on, whatever. So, all right, whatever. I called him back, booked another one. I did this. It took 6 months for me to finally get a meeting with him. Now, this guy is this guy hangs with major politicians, owned a bank, this guy was next level. So I finally get the appointment. And as I walk in, I go to his apartment on the Upper East Side. He had the entire floor. It was not the penthouse, but it was the entire floor of this building overlooking the East River. And I walk into his apartment and he's on the phone and he sits down. And on his desk, he's got a newspaper, and he takes the newspaper, he pushes it forward, and he points to the article, and then he points to the phone. So I read the article, and it was about this story about him and the last piece of beachfront property in Mexico that the Mexican government had essentially stolen from him, and how he was working with the State Department to figure out how to get this property back. He was on the phone with the State Department at that time talking about that project that was going on. And so he hangs up the phone and he shared a little bit about kind of what was going on. And then he goes, do you know why I took this meeting with you? I was like, no, thank you. He goes, I took it because you never gave up. I took it because you kept calling me. I owed it to you. He goes, my time is very valuable and I only spend it with people who I know are operating on a level that I can relate to. And that's the secret to success, is just pushing forward no matter what. I thought I was going to be there for about 45 minutes. But by the way, I backed up and basically my philosophy was going, what do I want to learn from him? At that point, what I wanted to learn from him was how to basically, at the time, how to start a label. I wanted to start a label, how to be successful in the music industry, because that was at the time still my passion, but I was open to anything. But I just wanted to learn how to be successful. How do you accomplish great things, massive things? And he had accomplished big things. So he shares with me his whole story without getting into the whole thing, basically because I went in with this kind of intention. I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow, I wanted to pick his brain. I thought I was going to be there for 45 minutes. I ended up being there for over 4 hours. He invited me out to dinner, and at that time I had plans I couldn't break and all of that, but he invited me and he helped me I raised money for his company. I'm a part owner in the company that it's called Komodo that he had started. I raised almost $1 million, close to $800,000, because I then started using my network and started building and adding value and connecting Eric with some of these other power players and so forth. So again, the power of that network, when you go in with what do you want to learn, who can you build a relationship with, and putting yourself in that environment. Like here I am partnering with Morrow and Walter and Terry, and we're all doing these incredible things because we built our network. And then secret number 3, or lesson number 3, we prime the pump of genius when we share our genius. So, in other words, we awaken our genius even more when we inspire others and help others. So, what does that mean? Well, I'm sure you've experienced this. You've had someone that you cared about, and we talked about this earlier, that maybe they had a challenge, maybe they had an issue, maybe they were working on something, and you have some expertise in it. And it may just be 2% more expertise, but that 2% makes a big difference always. And you say, hey, you know what? Wow, looking at that. Here's what I experienced when I saw a similar situation. And when you share that, or when you look at it through their eyes, while you're doing that, you go, whoa, that just made me think of there's another way I could use this in my business, because I've gotten so conditioned to doing things one way to be able to look at someone's business through my filter of experience. I just opened up even more ideas because I could look at, oh, well, you know what I would have done had I known what I know now. I would have done things this way. And then your brain starts thinking about even more ideas. So what the truly successful people get is that when we share, when we help others, it awakens even more of our genius. In NLP, it's called meta model. It's called like basically going meta, which is stepping outside yourself. So what happens is the way our brain works is when we look at another problem, another person's problem, we still by proxy are filtering it through our relationship with a similar problem. But what happens is by having a different perspective, we see things differently, which then can be reapplied back to our world. So what the really successful people do is they become part of masterminds or groups where they support each other. So there's groups like BNI that is all about networking and referrals. There's networking events. There's angel investors. There's RIAs, real estate investment associations. All of these environments are specifically designed for people to give and receive. They give to get. Are you seeing a pattern here? But the point is that when we consciously put ourselves in an environment that allows us to stimulate our thinking, our feeling, our connection to a higher power by stepping outside of ourselves and supporting someone else, we actually improve our thought process, our relationship with problem solving, our relationship with uncovering new opportunities and new ways of thinking. So when we share our genius, we excite and inspire our own genius. And then what happens is this is where the next level power comes. Have you ever roller skated or skateboarded with someone? And have you ever done this? When I remember when I was a kid, we would sometimes we use like a bed sheet to do it, so we'd have even more energy. But just imagine holding on to somebody, right? And then you get some energy and then you pull them and you hold on to them, you pull them with all this velocity forward, they start speeding up, gaining energy, and then they take you and speed you up. And then what happens is you get this velocity, this momentum going where we're supporting each other and going faster and faster and faster. That's what happens when we consciously put ourselves in an environment dedicated to support, to feeding the energy of this mentorship, of this mentor mind, of your success and beyond, which just creates new levels of thinking, new levels of being. And it's addictive because then you're like, I need to give more, because the more you give, the more that's right, get. So based on that philosophy, who can you share your genius with? And by the way, again, it doesn't have to be like you are the absolute master and they are the absolute apprentice. It could be, 10%, 1%, 2 days, 5 days more than the person you're helping. Or it could be you have mastered something and you're helping someone start from the ground up, or they're in the middle. Like there's no limit to your genius and who you can help. There's no limit. And that's the power of this. You need to get off the idea that someone, that you don't know enough. You always know and always have a little bit more experience than someone else. And by the way, because of the changes and the challenges in the world, you're actually offering a gift to someone. If you are in the need of some assistance, if you are building your business or you are working on your relationship or what have you, and you need the help, you're actually giving someone the gift because they need to be able to look at things a little differently because things have changed. Maybe you're having a problem that you're addressing right now because of technology changes, because of economic changes, because of regulations, because of a lot of things that this person may not have needed yet. But by you sharing and giving them the opportunity, you are helping them prepare for what may be coming. So being in an environment, your genius could be the fact that you're willing to share your vulnerability and the fact that you need help, which giving someone else the opportunity to transform that opportunity. And just so I just want you to also go, oh, well, I don't have genius. Everybody has genius. And then where can you share your genius? Where can you bring your prowess, your expertise, your challenges, your vulnerabilities in a safe place, right? It's so important that we're able to create a space that we can have these conversations which stimulate and inspire genius, inspire growth, inspire transformation, and ultimately that freedom that we all deserve and must create and be responsible for. I can't stress this enough, is we need to take personal responsibility, not settle for the status quo. If you look at the most successful people, they weren't falling prey to standards. They created new standards. They didn't accept status quo. They broke through it. They didn't allow anyone to tell them like what they can or can't do. They blazed a new trail by surrounding themselves with people of like minds who thought the same way. And that's why networking your way to wealth is the most important and valuable thing you could do for yourself, because not one of us is smarter than all of us. So network your way to wealth by understanding these 3 secrets. Success leaves clues. Truly successful people love to share their vision, number 2. And number 3, we prime our pumps of genius when we share ours. So with that being said, I appreciate you. I love you for who you are and who you aren't. I look forward to serving you with more depth and breadth in the future. I'm sure there's an opportunity in this to dive into the mentor mind. That is the ultimate goal, is to create this environment. That's what boomers are all about. That's what Give to Get is about, is to continue to grow our mastermind, our mentor mind, so that we could live, give, and love at the highest and deepest levels possible. So with that being said, I love you for who you are and who you aren't, and we will see you soon. God bless.